There you go.
Yeah, really nice.
Quite enjoyed it.
Just in the last 3 laps, a little bit of caution with the box with the front, and also me a bit aggressive with the first pickup of the gas, kicking the rear. So I tried to slow down. Works well. So no problems. But the only thing was the lap time keeps going with the GPS. Maybe 8 times. Full stint 8 times around this. And you can feel change setting, and then lap time comes back. Lap time goes. Maybe setting feels strange, but immediately when the lap time is back, it's normal.
Some electronic gremlins then.
Not the first time we've heard similar issues this year with the CERT bike. Of course, that's what caused Greg Black to crash in Le Mans. Whenever he came out of the pits, the dash was playing up a little bit on him. He tried to reset it and it switched off all the traction control, and he had a really weird high side, remember? So, yeah, sounds like the GPS unit in these bikes will sense where the bike is on track and will change what the bike's doing based on location. So if that's playing up, it's going to be changing how the bike feels. It's going to be making it a little bit unpredictable. Obviously, losing your lap timer is an issue as well if you're trying to be consistent and set a steady pace as you do in endurance racing.
Well, the gap was 12-13 seconds last time around before the pit stops sequence, and it's mellowed at around 12-13 after the pit stop sequence. So not much ventured, not much gained. But we're not really looking at that. We're looking at the bigger picture, aren't we, Simon? We're looking at what's going to happen in 6 hours' time or 5.5 hours' time as we are now, and whether or not those extra laps are just going to keep adding up and it will benefit the Yoshimura CERT bike or not.
Just looking at the lap times from the two front teams after that, took about 35 seconds extra for the CERT team to dive into the pits and refuel. Now, you'd imagine that if Yacht are still in the lead in the last stint, they probably won't be doing a full tyre swap. They'll just be doing a splash and dash, as quick a pit stop as they can to get some fuel into the bike. You know, changing tyres and stuff slows down the whole process because you can't be touching the bike while you're refueling it. You can't be doing anything else. So I'd suspect we'll see them do a very quick stop at the end, towards the end, just for fuel. But, you know, the question is, how much of a lead do they need to have on the clock to do that without it jeopardising their lead, their victory?
Little wobble there down at Bruxelles for Greg Black. And that, of course, is a bumpy downhill braking zone. We heard from Dan Linford that bike on the bumps was a little nervous with the front, and you just saw Greg have 2 goes at tipping that bike in.
The good thing for Greg will be that, you know, that debrief we heard from Dan to the team, Dan will have given Greg a very, very compressed version of that as they were waiting to swap bikes in pit lane while they were refueling it as well. So Greg will have a little bit of an idea from him where the bike's working and where it's not right now. At least he's got something that, you know, to give him a bit of a direction.
Well, we'll hear from Dan Linford now down in pit road.
Dan, track temperature are coming hotter and hotter. We know in Spa that the grip increase a little bit when the temperature are hot, but you managed to make a very, very fast stint. You gain sometimes on the Yamaha like 7 seconds, so it looks strong.
Yeah, thank you, Xavier. Yeah, I felt really good with the bike then. Actually, was probably the best I felt all week so far with the bike. Yeah, the temperature has helped us with our tyre selection, and the team did an amazing job with the setting and electronics and everything. So we're sticking to the plan now, and 2 more stints to go for me, and yeah, hopefully we can stay consistent and catch the Yamaha a little, and in the end, hopefully it's close.
Also, we saw that you were missing a little bit of top speed with your bike, but I heard that you changed your technique approaching the radio to gain a little bit of speed for the main straight. What did you change?
Yes, exactly that. I change on the approach to the Rouge Radeon, I change the position where I brake and when I can release the brake and pick up the gas to take better exit onto the big long straight. And yeah, the team said that the top speed was a good advantage, so I will keep doing this.
Well done.
Xavier Simeon there just talking to Dan Linfoot about his stint and how successful he'd been over the course of his stint. Don't forget, you can get in touch on X at DenkMit, which is Simon Patterson, and at Tom Gaymore, Gaymor, which is, of course, me. Jan has got in touch saying, to be fair, I'm having an absolute blast listening to Tom Gaymore and DenkMit commentating on the 8 hours of Spa Motos. Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much. One or two others getting in touch. To Track Rat saying, sorry to interrupt your lunch, but any particular reason why Spa got cut to 8 hours? Yes, so the main reason is cost, really, in this current economic climate, the cost of doing a 24-hour race, and also the cost of... Oh, that looked like it was a little bit sticky for Marcus Reiterberger down at Bruxelles.
I think that's just Marcus Reiterberger being Marcus Reiterberger again.
Almost looked like he was holding it up on his knee there, but...
Oh,
yeah,
both feet off the pegs there.
Yeah, back to my point. The lighting and stuff like that, there was going to have to be some real investment in improving the lighting around the circuit because it wasn't quite up to scratch in the previous 24 hours, and the young riders saying it's too dark. I had Terry Reimer in the booth in 2022. He said, in my day, it was pitch black. Never mind what they've got now. And that was the...
I saw a comment from Gino Rea earlier in the week to say that, you know, at the other 24-hour races we go to at the other venues, you at least have lights going into the corners. You know, you can see your braking markers because the corners are illuminated, whereas at Spa you were kind of having to just hope for the best and, you know, brake where you thought you were because it was so dark out there. So they've spent a lot of money refurbishing this place, adding a lot of safety features, but it seems like bringing the lights up to spec was just a bit too much.
Right, FCC TSR Honda back into pit lane. Don't forget, this bike has been down the road. Josh Hook was in the wars earlier on, and now they are back in pit lane because of another issue. It's Alan Teixeira who was on the bike at the time. There's no Mike D'Amelio, only 2 riders on this bike, but it looks as though, look at that, the trick handlebar just being assembled there.
I think that's the whole problem. It looks like that that clip-on bar was a bit loose. I saw the mechanic giving it a bit of a wobble before they wheeled the bike in, so maybe that's just not been tight back in place after the crash earlier. Maybe something that they've missed. Maybe it hasn't been tightened right after it has been changed. But thanks to all those quick release fasteners, it's as easy a job as you could hope for to pop it off and pop another one back on again. You can just see the mechanic at the front of the bike there with the weird-looking set of pliers to lock wire it back into place once they do reattach it. Just a safety feature to make sure that the bolt stays in place, and something that I think is mandated by the EWC rules for that very reason.
Going quickly, as he always is the Yamaha of Nicolo Canepa. Now let's see, last time around, he's gone purple, has he, last time around? I think he has.
He has indeed in the first sector.
Fastest lap of the race.
Fastest lap of the race. It's on again for Mr. Canepa, which is kind of what we expect with him. He's kind of the secret weapon of the Yart team, isn't he? He's the one that's extending the lead as opposed to maintaining it.
Yeah, he is the sledgehammer. If you want to deal a big blow, you get Nicolo Canepa out on the bike. Right, Stocker in the gravel.
It's the number 85 bike.
Well spotted.
They were running
on that machine.
Yeah, running in P22, actually running quite well up the order, but that doesn't look too badly damaged, but it looks like it is struggling to start again.
Josh Hook shaking his head. Now, we touched on this earlier when riders get it wrong, and it was Florian Marino at the time who went down on the KM99. I think it might have been Florian Marino. You just feel like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders.
And the thing is, you know, we've talked already about how that FCC TSR team, how they're running with only a two-man team. The stress of what they're going through at the minute, the stress of being in and out of the box, of not knowing if the bike's right, of taking some of the blame for the bike not being right, that all tires you out. Maybe even more than riding in these conditions does. You know, it's the mental stuff as well as the physical stuff, isn't it?
And he's been down the road now as well,
Yeah.
not to mention. So is he fully fit? Is another question for Josh Hook. But you've got to feel for the young man. I mean, human beings, of course, they've all been there. This is not something that's just unique to one rider. They've all been there. It happens. And the teams win and lose together. You know, there's no blame apportioned to anyone. But when it does happen to you, it's a natural human instinct to just blame yourself.
Without a doubt. It's just the way the human mind works, isn't it? It doesn't make it any easier knowing that it's not the team's fault whenever, or it's not your fault or anyone's fault, or that anyone's blaming you whenever you're the one sitting in the box looking at your bike, knowing that you are at the end of the day the one that broke it. But yeah, as we see, just Josh Hook just preparing to roll back out on it again, so at least they've got it repaired. But they're down to P23 in the standings now.
Right, so Nicolo Canepa leads by 18 seconds. He has dropped the pin and is disappearing. He was 1 second quicker than Greg Black last time around. He was 1.3 seconds quicker than Marcus Reiterberger in third place last time around. He is absolutely flying. 2:20s, and you've got everyone else in the 22s and 23s.
I wonder if we're, you know, we've talked before about riders doing double stints. I wonder if we're going to see Yart considering sending Canepa out for a double stint just to try and bump that lead up so that they can be as prepared as they need to be for an extra pit stop at the end. You know, he's got the capability. He is by far the fastest man on track today. Maybe we might see them try to, you know, take the risk of burning him out to use him up.
That would be, I think, the straw that breaks the camel's back when it comes to the threat from behind. So the top three, Yamaha, Suzuki, BMW. If you're looking at the super stockers, it's Aprilia, Honda, and they are 8th, 9th and 10th overall, and pretty tightly matched for second and third. Johan Nijon fighting with Chris Lesch. That is the Honda No Limits bike and the RAC Chrome Burner machine in, as I say, 9th and 10th overall, but second and third in class. Kevin Callier is a bit further up the road. Kevin Callier is doing 2:25s, a million miles away from the pace of the likes of Greg LeBlanc and Corentin Perolari, just ahead of him in 5th and 6th. It's really tightly matched, though, the top sort of 5 or 6 of that super stock class.
Yeah, just looking down the times now, there's nothing covering them. I think maybe 0.3, 0.4 covering the fastest laps of the top 6 guys in that last time out. It's been a long time since we've seen the Supersport classes closely fought, I think. In fact, just looking down at the battle for third in the Superstock class is actually raging on track at the minute.
Right, we have some questions from X. You can get in touch at Tom Gamel, at Dave Mint, Simon Patterson. Hi team, 2 things. 1, could B&W's huge wing actually make it slower long term? It looks so fast at the start. What is the limestone arena on the outside of the track at Eau Rouge? Well, with the B&Ws, that aero is meant to make it more efficient in the middle sector, but also in terms of its balance, braking and so forth, more stable. But it didn't look very stable in the hands of Marcus Reiterberger.
I mean, that's, you know, I think that's maybe something of a misconception with the aero that we've seen more and more in motorcycle racing about what it's for. it is mainly to improve braking performance. It's just to keep the back wheel of the bike planted on the ground more as you're going into corners. But it does come with a drag restriction. It adds, you know, aerodynamic force to the front of the bike. It makes it harder to work, but it looks like the BMW has so much horsepower that it's not particularly a problem for them.
Alan, after the crash of Josh, he continued the stint until the end. Then you had to enter the pit box. After that, you did an amazing stint. But again, you had to put the bike inside. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, you know, every time when you have some crash, you have many trouble. And when he come back, we change the right handlebar. And now we have some problem with the level of the clutch. Now, I have no problem during the stints, but when I come back, I feel the clutch doesn't work. This is why, and we change, and now clutch go again. And one need to push for come back a little bit.
Well, we will let you recover because we are only riding by two, so good rest and good luck.
Now we know what the FCC TSR team were doing when we saw the bike back into the pits again. Clutch problems for Tesha and the machine, so they've just had to change that front lever. But of course, endurance racing being endurance racing and the fastest way to do things, why change the lever whenever you can just change the entire front assembly, the whole handlebar and everything? Problem solved, hopefully.
I mean, you'd have to book your bike in for about 2 days to do that in a dealership. Not taking anything away from, you know, mechanics on the road, but it just shows you how quickly they can turn around these problems.
Absolutely. You see the green light panels flashing there, which I think means the yellow flags are out somewhere, so someone else has unfortunately ended up in the gravel.
We saw her Johan Zarco interview earlier, the Grand Prix last weekend. He sat down and spoke to the cameras about his return to Suzuka HRC. Obviously on a super bike. That's going to be quite the spectacle. They always bring an absolute rocket ship with them. Yes, team story is rather splendid so far as we approach the 3-hour mark. Not much to talk about, and that's always a good sign when you're out front. Things are going peacefully, riders are doing their job, the bike is doing its job, and the mechanics are watching on. That has been the story so far. Add to it blistering pace, and Yamaha have not really been headed. They've got Yoshimura Cert chasing them down, but as it stands, Nicolo Canepa is opening the gap out front as the champions try and go for 2 out of 2 here at Spa. Leading in the super stock class is the Aprilia. There we go, the 111 machine with Kevin Callier on that bike. I mean, talking about hard work, I don't think I've seen anyone else on the bike yet.
I think a few of them have got a lap or two in, but he's definitely hogging it, isn't he? But, you know, it's another one of these examples where he's clearly the fastest guy. They feel he's the fastest guy in their team. So they're using him to the full advantage while they find themselves in a position that certainly we didn't expect to see them in, and I don't think they maybe really expected to see themselves in either.
This is going to the technical bay. This was the cause of the yellow flag, the Infiniteam Flam machine. That's quite the name, isn't it? It's quite the livery as well. And Stuart, who's in the back of the booth here, pointed out to me about the 27 bike, the TRT 27 bike. We saw them in the wars earlier. Their team manager has got to go to race control on the naughty step probably. So that means 9 times out of 10 they've done something wrong in pit lane or haven't followed the policies and procedures.
I'm starting to think that P22 is cursed, because every time someone seems to get into 22nd in this race, they then promptly fall off.
Yeah, that's bad news for anybody trying to move up the order. Josh Hook, 24th.
Yeah.
Stefan Hill just behind in 23rd as well. Kaz Watanabe's on the bike, the 25 pole-sitting Team Etoile BMW. That's 21st overall, dropped right down in class. Not
having a good race at all, are they?
No, they're not. It started off okay. And Randy de Punier is out on the KM99, another bike that's been in the wars at Le Comte. Florian Marino threw that bike down the road earlier on. Randy de Punier back out on the machine. Sure to get a glimpse of his flamboyant riding style. Battle for second is on in Superstock. Well, Johan Nijon and Chris Lesch have been very, very tightly matched the whole of this stint. You've got Honda No Limits bike in yellow there, and just behind you'll see Chris Lesch. They're chasing down the 33, the Team Loit April Moto bike, which isn't in the running. It's a lap down on this battle further back, but nevertheless a quick bike because it's in the top 10 in class. So this is going to help Chris Lesch close the gap a bit if Johan Nijon gets stuck behind this 33 machine.
Yeah, Nijon just pulled ahead, a bit of a lead there over Lesch, but I think it might play back into the Dutchman's favour over the next few laps if he can close it down again.
Super slow-mos, the heat haze, and the Ardennes in the background.
It's very relaxing.
And I feel like I'm on a spa weekend here. Oh, I am. I'm here all day.
And the dad joke award of the day goes to... How long have you been thinking about that one?
It just came out. And then, you know, there we go. Right. Bad news for the viewers. I'm here for the full 8 hours. Well, we're approaching the 3-hour mark, and I'd say it's gone rather quickly.
It has, hasn't it?
3 hours.
Yeah. Be almost time to hand over again, and it feels like it's flown by.
Exactly. Let's hope that Liam and Taylor are on time and they're not enjoying a 4-course Belgian meal somewhere.
Do you get 4 courses in Belgian meals? I thought it was just frites.
Well, it depends.
Maybe mayonnaise, ketchup, mustard, and...
Depends on the quality of the hospitality, but I'm just going to go for the frites. Or the waffles.
Funny story, actually. Speaking of Belgian food, Belgian desserts. There's a lovely Belgian chocolate store in Andorra owned by our very own Pitlane reporter, Xavier Simeon.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, Belgian chocolate's famous the worldwide. Xavier Simeon, of course, a former superstar in this paddock, and now paving the way to, what do you call it, chocolatier?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the official term, I think. Nicolo Canepa continues the lap quickly out front. He's a second quicker than Greg Black. The gap now over 19 seconds. So all the work that Dan Linford had done has now been undone. And that's no disrespect to Greg Black. I just think Nicolo Canepa, matched with that Yamaha, is an equation that is very, very difficult.
Yeah, I think anyone that was up against Canepa at the minute is going to be conceding time. You know, the way that he's gelled with that bike, that package is just working so well for him.
See what Reiterberger's doing. He's matching Greg Black's time in third. The gap between those two about 66 seconds. And then you've got the Tata team, Beringer bike, the number 4 machine in 4th place. Hugo Claire, Randy Krumanacher, Corentin Perilari aboard that. Randy Krumanacher, very quick Supersport rider, back in the day, world champion.
Look at this pack of super stock machines on track together. I don't know if they're all battling for position, but a proper scrappy race there with a big group of machines together.
They're so tightly matched, and the sort of equilibrium of technologies there in terms of performance is really spot on. Randy de Punier bringing the KM99 machine in for the end of his latest stint.
Yeah, very relaxed pit stop with his replacement just having a little wander around pit lane, making sure that everything was all well and good before jumping on the bike to replace Randy. So it's good to see that maybe they've made some adjustments to the bike for this weekend, but Randy doesn't need his footstool to get on it anymore. They've maybe dropped the height a little bit. Of course, we saw him in Le Mans, didn't we, with a little step just to help him get up onto the seat. Not the tallest character in the paddock.
Well, probably, given that you mentioned it at every single pit stop, they've probably got rid of it now.
He didn't say anything. I saw him the week after, and he didn't, he didn't sort of ship me daggers in the MotoGP paddock, so he wasn't too offended by it.
Jeremy Guarnoni on the left-hand side with the baseball cap. Debrief in French now, and that's a face we've seen before.
Le dernier gauche, une fois sur deux, je n'arrive pas à rentrer la 4. C'est un problème de position de fixeur ou de décomposition. On dirait qu'elle se réenclenche pas, tu sais. Mais pourtant, je laisse le pied, je fais exprès. Mais tu crois que le sélecteur reste en position et il redescend pas assez parce qu'on laisse le pied. Mais je fais vraiment gaffe. Tu sais, quand t'es focus sur un truc, tu fais 6, 5, et un coup sur deux, t'arrives pas à enclencher la 4, quoi.
A nice calm and collected debrief there from Randy.
La vitesse, que ça restait sur un faux point mort, tu vois. Et là-bas, la nulle encore.
Can't translate that, unfortunately.
Canter won't, Tom. Canter won't.
I wish I could.
Dans les doubles gauches, là. La lampe. Ouais, la lampe, ça
Talking about the double left. He's got a problem there. So Pouon, I think he's talking about. A few concerned faces. Interestingly, Florian Marino had done a double stint there.
Yeah.
If you looked at the stint times, so Florian Marino's done 3. Randy and Jeremy Guarnoni only been on the bike once. Guarnoni, of course, over from BMW.
Yeah, it's strange how much we see an 8-hour race versus a 24-hour race change the strategy, isn't it? Because in 24-hour races at this point, you'd never dream of sending your rider out for a double. Yeah, here we're just mixing it around quite a few teams.
So Dan Kyle's just got in touch on X at Tom Gamel at Dick Mintz, saying, just joined the coverage, what have I missed? Well, you've missed a masterclass from the Yamaha squad, a fast-starting Yoshimura Cert bike now in second. The BMW was battling for second for a long part of the first and opening stint. 2 bikes have been down the road. The KM99 machine that we see on our screen, that crash was up at Le Camp, and of course the FCC TSR Honda, the big hitter from Honda. That bike, Josh Hook, sending it down the road at Campus. So that is what you've missed. Shy Talk says Spa weekend, but with a little graphic.
Don't
there.
encourage him.
We don't need to revisit that gag. As Liam's back. So Liam and Taylor, it was only a few minutes ago that we saw you disappearing off for lunch, but fed and watered, back to do another 60 minutes of commentary, and then it'll be you back with myself and Simon. If you're wondering where we are, we're on, well, Eurosport 2 and Discovery Plus now, up until 7 p.m. British summertime, so no need to adjust your TV screens or go anywhere. Just sit back, enjoy the action. We've got lots of racing still to come from here, Spa-Francorchamps. Aerial shot just picking up the kart circuit there as Simon makes his way out of the booth. And Liam gets set in the hot seat.
Oh, what a lovely intro once again, Tom. Thank you so much for the big up. I don't think I deserve that whatsoever. But one man that certainly will is my co-commentator and for the day, Taylor, when he gets himself sat down and plugged in. He'll be bringing his dulcet tones to your wonderful ears in just a moment's time. And just remember, if you're joining us for the first time and wondering what's happening, well, do not fret once again, because we will be taking you through the next hour before we hand back over to Simon and to Tom. And just remember, you can get in touch with us on Twitter or X, whatever you prefer it to be called. Myself at Liam Hodgins, 48, got a question in 1 hour ago from Mason ZX10. Apologies, Mason, for getting back to you so late, but he's wondering, will it even get to night time there? It's still 9 p.m. in the UK. Now, I live in Central Europe myself, and to be honest, Mason, I don't even know myself. I think it will probably become dusk, but if it gets quite to darkness, I don't believe it will. And of course, just keep sending those messages in to us. I'd say maybe more send it over to Taylor himself, and Taylor will be answering your questions as the expert analyst on my left-hand side. And Taylor's Twitter handle would be
at TaylorMac77.
Taylor.
So feel free to find me any questions.
Yeah, sorry for throwing you under the bus again, Taylor, but okay. Yeah, you're better at answering these questions than I am. Just teeing them up, and you'll knock them down.
You say that. I've no doubt there's a lot more experts out there, but I have actually got some inside information from James Westmoreland. James Westmoreland races in one of these teams, but as this is only a 3-rider event, they don't need him this weekend, so he doesn't race in this event. I believe his teammate is Florian Out, and they're in that team, and he said they were running very comfortably in P4, but they just had a water hose clip break and they've lost a few laps, so now they're down in P18, but hopefully they can recover a bit. To which I replied, what a shame, but this is endurance racing, so don't worry, there's a long way to go yet. We've still got another 5 hours of racing. And as we know, absolutely anything can happen.
As the great wise words of Murray Walker used to say. And I hope for, well, everyone's sake, that you didn't just reply with, what a shame. I hope you replied with a pun, water shame.
I missed that one there.
If you want some terrible puns, I'm pretty sure we might have just lost about half of our viewer base there. Please do not turn off, because the puns will be put in the drawer and left for another day. Now, a quick recap of how the order is looking. Nicolo Canapa still leading the way on the #1 Yart Yamaha. 24.6 seconds ahead of Greg Black on the Yoshimura Cert Moto Suzuki. And in the third spot, we have the 37 of Marcus Reuterberger on the BMW Motorrad machine. That is the top 3 just after the 3-hour mark. And we've got Corentin Perolari and Gregory LeBlanc rounding out the top 5 as well. So they're all chasing the Yart Yamaha as we're watching Nicolo Canapa from the onboard through Puyong all the way up through the kink to bus stop chicane, and glorious blue skies greeting us as we throw out the anchors onto the brakes through the right and the left turn. Is poetry in motion, Taylor, you have to say, from the onboard.
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting to look at this onboard here, because that's either a fly or a bit of rubber on the screen, which you wouldn't, maybe perhaps if you sit at home and you've not ridden a motorbike on track, consider that flies, bugs, You can see the inside of his screen there, how many bugs are on the
Wow, look at
outside of the
that.
screen. Yeah. So on your actual helmet, you have what are called tear-offs. So it's just a little thin strip of plastic. You'll get 2 or 3 of those on your visor, and they can actually pull that on their way round, take the hand off the handlebar and pull it off, and that gives you clear vision again. So if you imagine this is your visor, this is exactly what you're seeing. It can distort your vision slightly. It can be very off-putting, especially if you get bigger insects like butterflies or wasps or bees. They can really splat across the front of your visor and put you off. So it's another thing in endurance racing that we see on the front of the screen there, that when they come in, they're trying to clean that screen so they can actually see better through the screen on the straights.
Yeah, well, hopefully you'd be wanting a bee or a wasp to splatter on your screen rather than get inside your suit, because we've seen that happen a number of times over the years, and it looks like one of the most unpleasant experiences that could ever happen to you. But yeah, so far so good for Nico Canepa and the Yacht Yamaha team, who's leading the way from Greg Black and Marcus Reiterberger. That is your top 3 after the 3-hour mark. Continuing to ride on board with the Yacht Yamaha, piloted by Nicolo Canepa. We're looking back from the dashboard cam back towards Nicolo Canepa, and as Taylor was just saying there, you can see the bugs splattered across the bubble from the insects that have really occupied the Ardennes forest before occupying the bubble of Nicolo Canepa's Yacht Yamaha. And I guess, Taylor, you'll get a lot more of these bugs because of the location we're in with the forest surrounding. But how much of a nuisance will that be when you're riding? Do you notice it, or does it distract you a little bit? Or I'm not even distracting, but is it something that can really just sort of take away your line of vision, as we see Nicolo Canepa stick his leg out before he comes into the pit? So we might see the Yacht Yamaha team give the bubble a bit of a wipe down. Yeah,
it can be something that just sort of is there that you don't really notice. It's 1 fly, then 10 flies and 20 flies. But I think perhaps in an endurance race you've got more time to think, because it's not quite as intense as we'll see here if they clean the screen. It's not quite as intense as a short circuit race. You have more time to think because you're on track for longer. So I think at that point, that's when you start pulling more tear-offs, because you're concentrating less on the track and more on everything around you. Having said that, it doesn't really distort your vision too much unless you get something big, like we talked about, like a wasp or a butterfly, that can really spread across the outside of your visor, and that can distort your vision, at which point you want to pull your tear off to get yourself a better run out. They didn't actually clean the screen there. These pit stops are so fast, they don't actually have that much time to do that. You see at the Isle of Man TT, that's another place where this really comes into effect when they've got a lot of bugs, especially in and out of the hedges at the Isle of Man. They do clean their screens every pit stop and change their visors as well.
Yeah, we're getting dangerously close to turning into bug watch here, so we'll get back to the bike racing. And Nicolo Canepa, just after his stint there, breaking a bit of a sweat, but not too much. These riders are incredibly fit, and Nicolo Canepa, he's been around the block a few times, ex-MotoGP rider, done a little bit of CIV, the Italian National Superbike Championship as well, and quite a phenomenal rider, and someone that's, if you want someone on your bike, Nicolo Canepa is one of those riders.
Yeah, vastly experienced guy is Nicola. Also, he helps the Yamaha World Superbike team. He goes out, does a lot of spotting for them trackside, watching the bike, testing for them, and in this also does a lot of racing. You can see the bugs on his visor there. That's after 2 tear-offs as well that they've pulled off during the session, so you can see how many it accumulates. But yeah, great rider. Does some incredible, if anyone's interested, onboard footage on his YouTube channel. He actually puts onboard cameras on his helmet for a lot of these races. Some of the ones from Suzuka at night are incredible to watch. And yeah, he's still loving his racing and very fast.
Yeah, so we're looking at the Yacht Yamaha occupied by Marvin Fritz. So Marvin Fritz on his first lap out of the pit lane, continuing to lead the way of the 8 hours of Spa. 8 minutes past the 3-hour mark, and well, I say he's leading the way, but that was the case before his pit stop. He's now dropped behind Greg Black on the Yoshimura Cert Motul Suzuki. Greg Black leading the way now, 16 seconds ahead of the Yamaha. So we'll maybe try and listen into what Nicolo Canepa is saying.
went to the pit. When I was turning left, he was turning right. It's completely unacceptable from a factory rider.
Yeah, so Nico Carapa very much. Yeah, so the bike is okay, but clearly finding some of the riders out on track are not okay. And I imagine this is something that will happen throughout the entirety of the racing. It's really easy to happen, isn't it? Because you're lapping some of the riders in the stock class, maybe some riders are not quite on the factory spec of bike that you are, so maybe some of the riders may be in their own little battle, and you might see the blue flag if you're in your battle, but maybe not at the same time.
Yeah, I would be interested to know which rider he was talking about there. I missed him coming in the pit, so I didn't actually see which rider he came in at the same time as, but clearly unhappy. The pit lane here is a little bit tricky in that it feeds straight from a chicane, so if you're on the wrong side of the track, if you ran a little bit wide, you would come across the front of a rider to get into the pits. But having said that, if they're trying to outbrake each other going into that corner, it does it can lead to these situations. We actually saw that in the very first stint right at the start of this race, where they were fighting for track position. And yeah, it's part of this race, gaining track position. If you can get in front of someone before your pit stop, you've obviously got more chance getting out the other side in front of them, and perhaps doing your stint with clear track in front of you. So it's a race just like a short circuit race is, where you're trying to beat the guy in front. It's not like this is a time trial, this is a race still. So yeah, we get incidents like that.
Yeah, it's probably the closest thing to the TT we will get, but it's obviously not the Isle of Man TT, which is enjoying some of its last day of racing over on the island today. So we don't know any of the results, so we won't give any of them away either. So we're continuing to watch Marvin Fritz come through the double right-hander before powering back up the hill toward Pouillon Corner. We're looking here at the stock class, the Chrome Burner, RAC 41 with Leash at the machine. Also Wayne Tettles and Ren Odin, the French rider, part of that team as well, and the Chrome Burner machine, one of the top tier in the class. The team have been around for quite a while, race winners, champions as well throughout the years, and the 41 looking absolutely brilliant at the front of the field. As we see, that's one of the Hondas, is that the 333 maybe, the 61 on the butt patch there, so I'm not quite sure who that is coming back in. Oh, don't make sure you don't fall over there, but clearly some problem as they've come out of the pits. Big disaster there, so if there's any time you want a technical issue, that's, I guess, coming out of the pit lane is probably the best place to have it. Yeah,
he was signalling to his mechanic there like he'd run out of fuel. I'm not actually sure what the rule is. Obviously the bike was turned off. If you can sit on your bike and push it the wrong way back down the pit lane, I don't know what will happen there.
I'm not sure.
It's obviously a very tricky situation when people are coming out of the pits.
Yeah, especially maybe if you're on the slow lane, as they call it might be okay, but I think it was better if, the 44 looking at the down at the brake lever, maybe something coming out the back of the bike. Can't see anything there. That was quite a strange one there, Taylor, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what he was looking down there for. Perhaps something with his gear lever, or see if something's leaking out the bike. He's coming in the pits here, he's sticking his leg out or signalling to let someone past.
Yeah, Nijon currently on board that machine at the moment, signalling to the riders behind. I guess maybe if you've got a problem, well, it will be better to signal that you're coming into the pits as early as you possibly can, but I don't imagine that you'd be doing it as early on in the lap as that, so must be having a problem. As we're looking at the BMW Motorrad squad, so if I could totally getting ready to jump on the machine. Puts on the cap, and away he goes. That looked like a very slick pit stop as well.
You see just how relaxed Sylvain is in that situation. He's so experienced, not rushing, not flapping to put the fuel cap back on. It's what makes Sylvain such a valuable asset to a team like this in World Endurance.
Yeah, he's been around the block a few times as Sylvain Guintoli, and this lot here, I don't know if it's just me, but you're probably better placed to say, it looks like they were just setting up a little bit coming through the double right-hander behind the 44, so I wonder if they've seen something from the bike just in front after Nijon was signalling to them coming through Lecombe earlier on in the lap.
Yeah, potentially something leaking out of his bike. Nijon's still looking down every time he comes out of the corner, and these guys definitely look a little bit unsure whether to pass him or not. Only he will know what's going on, but the one thing with endurance racing is because this is an endurance race, you can't afford to stop. You can't afford to let your competitors gain any time on you. So they're more likely to ride around on a bike that is leaking fluid or that does have an issue. Whereas in a short circuit race, you perhaps pull off the track or come in the pits. He's signalling here still.
Yeah, it's definitely got a problem.
He's on the right-hand side of the bike, pointing towards the back of the bike. I honestly don't know what that could be. He's coming in the garage because it must be something fairly serious.
Yeah, I mean, if you're leaking some fluids, I can imagine for the riders behind, that would be the worst nightmare for you as well. As we see the 55, they've come in as well. Looks like another slick pit stop might be on the way for riders that a little bit further down the field. So it doesn't matter how far down the field you are, you're always scrapping for every single position, trying to work your way up the order for, well, even if you're not in contention for the win, you still want to take it as bragging rights. And that was the National Motos Honda, the 55, currently sitting overall in 8th spot, second in class behind well, it was the Honda No Limit before they came into the pits. It's now the 41. Chris Leash will be taking over the top spot again in that class. But the 55, first pit stop, the Honda No Limits team back out on track and heading towards Eau Rouge they go. And this is, Taylor, I reckon around about this time of the day is when you're starting to feel the physicality, because the riders are doing about 48-minute stints, as you were quite rightly predicting earlier on. And as we see the No Limits.
So this is the bike where Nijon was looking down towards the back of the bike. Well, the reason you'd be looking down if you were on that bike is a few things. One is something's missing, whether it's your brake lever or your gear levers fell off the bike. You would obviously notice that because you'd go for it and it wouldn't be there. The other reason is because there's fluid coming out of it, and fluid will either come, normally if it's water, it'll be coming out of the radiator, or fuel out of the tank, or some of the breathers onto the screen in front of you can see that. Or if it's oil, it comes down the side of the bike onto your feet, and your feet start slipping off the foot pegs. So that would be the reason he'd be looking down. He couldn't see there what they were fixing, but it must have been something fairly serious to warrant the rider coming into the pits, because otherwise he would just stay in the pit lane and they wouldn't be working on the bike.
Yeah, as we saw from the FCC 5 Honda squad earlier on, Josh Hook had a little bit of a tumble and continued on, but amazing work there from the Honda No Limit squad, getting that bike back out and within the space of 2 minutes, I believe. So very, very rapid pit stop from the Honda No Limit squad. The Yoshimura CERT Moto squad with Greg Black on board the machine, leading this quite brilliantly at the moment. They're looking like they're able to extend each stint by a couple of laps over the Yart team, so that's something that could play into the hands towards the final hour of the race. Yeah, it's difficult for my maths to work this out now until we get towards the end of the. You've been doing much better than I have been doing. So.
Until we can see when we get closer to the end how these stints are lining up. But yeah, when the CERT team is able to eke out a couple of laps each time. We heard from Sylvain Guintoli early in the race, racing the BMW bike, which is in 3rd position, that their engine is a little bit faster. They've got a different spec engine this weekend, but it is using more fuel. And using more fuel means that you're going to have to come into the pits earlier, obviously. And these small differences, where it's a pit stops 1 lap earlier, really makes all the difference at the end of this race. But we don't really see that develop until we get further on towards the 7-8 hour mark.
Yeah, it's all a big game of chess at the moment, an 8-hour game of chess, and by the end of it, everything will become a lot more clear. Rider that you were mentioning earlier on, Taylor, Nico Tony, he's currently on the Kawasaki, the number 8 Kawasaki at the moment. He's sitting in 6th spot there and motoring along quite well in the 23s and 22s. 22 on the last, 24 in the last lap there, so we're seeing the Yoshimura CERT Moto team, and it seems to be every time we talk about a pit stop for a team, they come in later on that lap, so I think we're getting it quite spot on at the moment. And yeah, that's what, 2 laps later than the Yart Yamaha squad, so it's just an extra couple of laps here and there, and it amounts to a much bigger thing as we'll see them stop up, and it'll be Greg Black handing over the machine to, I believe, it won't be Dan Linford, he's already been out for a stint, so it'll be Marvin Fritz taking over on that one. sorry, Martin Fritz will be taking over the lead. Apologies on that one there, and heading out we have
Etienne.
Yes,
Masson.
it is Masson. Yes, I was just looking at the helmet there, and I was like, that's not Landfoot, is it? I'm completely getting myself mixed up there. So, yeah, thankfully you're on the ball more than I am there. Well, we've got Ryder down. That's 37.
No,
that's Gintoli. Gintoli's gone down. It looks like just before the left-hander, the corner with no name. So that's a strange place. He's on the inside of the circuit. So Sylvain Gintoli on the BMW Motorrad team squad, throwing some of the carbon fibre off to the right. So here we go. Coming out of the right-hander, just watching the middle of the screen. Oh, wow, that's come round. He's lucky that didn't throw him over the high side. That's a very strange crash.
I have absolutely no idea. Let's see if we can listen to the onboard. There's no sound.
Hopefully the sound will pick up. Just comes right round on Sylvain.
So strange. So it's the rear of the bike that's let go, but it's such an odd place for that to happen. As is accelerated on the gas, the bike's just carried on spinning, but it's such a strange place for that to happen, and a strange way for the bike to crash. Normally in that situation, the rear lets go, you let go of the throttle, and it'd high side you over the top, but it hung on for a while, spun out with Sylvain on it, but huge in the race, this in the battle for third.
Yeah, massive. And he's very lucky that the tyre didn't grip and throw him over the handlebars, because that could have been a very nasty accident. It's more rare to have a crash like that when the rear just keeps coming round rather than gripping up.
Yeah, and this is where traction control plays a part. It wouldn't necessarily happen if you had no traction control on the bike, because, as we see another guy riding the wrong way down the pit lane.
Yeah, that's sure that looks like an issue going in for the 82.
That bike's just locked up.
Yeah, it has done. Oh my goodness, you don't even stop in there in the racing lane with the others coming barreling into turn one. That's very close indeed. Getting off the circuit as quickly as possible, but we're starting to see a few mistakes and errors now, and some technical gremlins creeping in. So yeah, you would expect that to happen around about this time of the day. But that was a massive problem, as we see Sylvain Gintoli slowly making his way back to the pits. So one of the most experienced riders, one of the most decorated riders on the cards at the moment in the Endurance World Championship. Sylvain Gintoli had a small off coming out of the right-hander. Hopefully we'll see it now. We'll just watch a replay of something, some grass coming out the back. Oh, a lot of grass coming out the bottom of the belly pan there. It looks like a lawnmower.
It's taken a while on this in-lap, perhaps missing foot pegs or levers or something, because if he didn't, he would be riding at full pace still, but he's definitely riding around quite cautiously, and already lost to third place. LeBlanc has already overtaken them without even doing a pit stop at this point, and they've still got to do a pit stop. So huge this for the BMW team. They were riding really well, looked very solid in third, and it's unlike Sylvain to make a mistake like this. So yeah, strange crash.
Yeah, and she just mentioned there correctly, it's promoted LeBlanc up to the podium spot. The Team Balder Switzerland Kawasaki team, they've been slowly working their way up through the order, and they've been rewarded by just staying out there a little bit longer than everyone else. A lap behind the race leader is the Yart team, but they're up into third. Sylvain Gintoli comes into the pits. How long will it take before we see the number 37 back out on track there? Maybe we can quickly hear in.
For sure, some oil, he said there. I did think it was a very strange crash, so perhaps we did see Nijon looking down earlier, and it did look like... Let's see if Sylvain says anything else. Yeah, I did think it was a strange crash. The Nijon rider that was looking down earlier, the riders behind him were riding quite cautiously, whether that bike was leaking oil, and it's played a part in this crash for Sylvain. Such a strange crash. You don't see crashes like that really, where a bike just spins out from underneath you. The traction control system is so good on this bike that it really takes something quite strange for it to not react and not save a crash like that. So, you know, we'll have to see if that's happened to Sylvain. There's no reason why it won't happen to other riders out there, so we'll have to wait and see if that is something on the track.
Yeah, he's been going out for a bit of gardening, has Sylvain, but as you just said quite rightly, it's a very, very strange one, and it's also more strange, I would say, that no other rider has gone down just yet. Maybe they can see there's a bit of a line through the corner, so they've been able to miss it, but someone of Sylvain Gintoli's experience, you can imagine if there was an oil line on the track. Here we go again. Just watch for the rider coming out of the corner now, and you're just slides round on him. So yeah, it's a very strange accident. You can all imagine there is some fluid on the circuit.
It's more similar to a crash that you would have in the wet. That's where you would see a crash like that. In the dry, there's so much grip from these tyres that they don't generally just let go like that in one go. You might see it on a track day or something like that if someone's got the wrong tyre pressures in the bike, or perhaps something leaking out of their bike. You might see it, but in a professional racing like this, it's unlike a bike to spin out like that. You can see how frustrated Sylvain is there.
Yeah, face of thunder that Sylvain has on now. And after his beaming from ear to ear earlier on in the race, he's completely taken that and turned it up to an upside down frown now. And you can imagine that there'll be so much going through his mind. And well, yeah, Sylvain Gautreau doesn't get caught out by things like that unless there's maybe something contaminating the circuit. But the BMW team have got a big job on now to replace some of the bent, broken parts on the machine. And we saw earlier on with the FCC Honda squad, it looked like Josh Hick had a very innocuous off and continued on for a number of laps afterwards, but it was only until he came in to make his scheduled pit stop that the team started making big changes to the bike. So you can imagine there'd be a few things bent out of shape on the BMW bike. And yeah, as the time ticks down, they just continue to lose even more and more laps to the Yart team that continue to lead the way from the Yoshimura Cert Suzuki, and now the 4 Honda in third. So big drama here in the 8 hours of Spa. The 3 hour and 20 minute mark, we did see Sylvain Guintoli go down, and we've got another rider down. That's the
Wojcik.
Yeah, the Wojcik team. That's a bag off. He's holding his right arm there.
Right, is that Danny Webb? I think that is Danny Webb.
I think you might be right, Taylor. That's a big shame there if that's Danny Webb. So he's just gone down out of the corner that we saw Sylvain Guintoli go down going into. So we'll see it here. Watch here. Rear comes round, big high set. Wow, he's come down in his right arm there. Big off for Danny Webb. Wow. Ejected from the Honda machine, and that's what we're just talking about there, Taylor. Sylvain Guintoli was so lucky that didn't happen to him, but poor old Danny Webb holding his arm as he was walking away. Looks like he looks a little bit less hurt now than he did beforehand, so maybe he's just making sure that everything was still...
Danny is tough as old boots. If anyone can take a crash like that, it's Danny. Huge crash though, and I have to say, I wouldn't be surprised if that was caused by something on the track. It's an unlikely, really late in the corner to have a high side that big. But it is in the hottest part of the day, so it might just be that the track temperature is increasing and it's becoming more slippery at that place on the track. But a huge high side, lucky to get up from that. And if he manages to get this back to the pits, it'll be a miracle, because the bike went end over end. I wouldn't be surprised if there's damage to the wheels as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of debris on the circuit, so it could be well and truly bent out of shape, the Wojcik Honda. But thankfully, Danny does seem to be able...
puncture in the back tyre there. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult to get that back. We'll need a big assistance, and it's one of the worst places to go down around the Spa-Francorchamps track, because it is probably the farthest place away from the pits, and now the pain is starting to kick in for Danny. Here we go again. Taylor, just talk us through this.
Yeah, so he's going to get on the throttle here. The rear lets go. Oh, it went all the way to the lock stop, and at that point, just as you let go of the throttle, the rear grips again and fires him over the high side. But watch the bike here, end over end over end. Each time it's landing on the front and the back like that, it's bending the frame and the wheels and the swing arm out of shape. You can see the wheel, shape of the wheel there. Very lucky. He really got slapped down hard, and I'm sure he's in a lot of pain after that. Hopefully nothing serious from that, but a very nasty crash, and hopefully not the end of their day, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, a bike can be mended and a rider takes a little bit longer, so we hope for the best for Danny. And once again, yes, he's pushing the bike off to the edge of the circuit, but that bike's going to take a bit of repair job to get that bike out on track once more. As we see the sun starting to just get a little bit lower in the sky, and I think you were spot on the money there, Taylor, with the temperature. making the surface just a little bit slippery as well. So we approach the 3.5-hour mark, and drama for the Wojciech 77 bike of Danny Webb, who had a massive high side coming through the left-hander, the off-camber downhill, just moments after we saw Sylvain Guintoli, who's making his way back out onto the 37 machine, have a crash going into the corner. Both rear end problems, as a bit of petrol gone onto the seat unit there, but no problem there for Sylvain Guintoli. Thankfully for Sylvain Guintoli, thought I stalled it for a second. Sylvain Guintoli powering back out onto track, and we will have maybe a replay of what happened earlier on. So yeah, just a big moment there from Danny Webb exiting the corner. If you just joined us for the first time, really slapping down his right hand. He was holding it for a second, but thankfully he was able to walk away. Thankfully it looked like he was fairly okay, but Taylor, that was a very, very strange crash indeed.
Yeah, a huge crash. You just see he opens the throttle, the rear begins to slide, just lets go, and it just at that point it's gone too far. He lets go, but absolutely thrown into the air and landed really heavily. Danny is as hard as anyone and just got up from that after a few seconds and laid on the floor. But yeah, really hope they can get back into this race. Not what they needed, and a lot of damage to the bike as well, it would seem. The bike cartwheeled through the air, did some real damage to the front and rear of the bike, so it's going to be a big job to repair it.
Yeah, and he was struggling to push the bike away as well, so yeah, a very dramatic couple of minutes there with a 37 bike going down, with Sylvain Guintoli has dropped now down the field, and of course the 77 Wojciech machine of Danny Webb. The 37 is plummeted all the way down to 16th position, so well and truly amongst the super stock machines, and one of the teams that we've had a bit of a disastrous day so far. A couple of crashes, and well, a crash and a very tough start at the beginning of the race. The number 5 FCC Honda, they dropped well and truly down at the pack after the crash. They lost almost 7 minutes inside the 2-hour mark, and they've just went back out on circuit. The number 5 Honda is currently sitting in, just go through the timing pages as I cannot find it, in 20th position. So Alan Tesher, who was the rider that struggled away from the start earlier on, has a mountain to climb if he wants to get himself back inside the battle for the top 5. So it's starting to turn into a race of attrition now. Yeah,
we heard earlier that these hotter temperatures today have been far different from what they rode in yesterday. It was a little bit cooler yesterday. The cooler temperatures offer a little bit more grip. As these tyres are getting hotter and hotter, we're seeing less edge grip when they're on the side of the tyre, and as they're accelerating away, they're losing the rear and crashing. We've seen a lot more crashes than I honestly expected. Even though this is just an 8-hour race, people are riding more aggressively than it perhaps would in a 24-hour race, as this is more of a sprint for these guys, even though it is a full 8 hours of racing. But yeah, they've seen some very nasty crashes today. Sylvain Guintoli's crash on the BMW bike, they crashed out of 3rd place. That was a little bit different in that he just touched the throttle and the bike spun out from underneath him. When he came into the pits, he thought that it might have been oil that was on the track, and we have seen a rider riding around the number 44 bike was riding around earlier. Perhaps leaking fluid onto the track is the cause of some of these crashes, but we don't know. Endurance racing is difficult because in a short circuit race, the whole pack would ride away from an incident, and the marshals actually have time to run onto the track, check the surface and run back. But in this, because there's a constant wave of riders riding around the track the whole time, it's difficult for the marshals to get out and observe to see if there is any fluids on the track. So that's why you end up with a little bit, there's a few more incidents of things being on the surface. It would take a couple of riders to go down before you would perhaps realise that there's fluid on the track.
Even in the situation where they don't go down, could some of the riders that come in to do the bike change maybe run to the clerk of the course and explain there's oil down, so they would throw out the safety car to neutralise the race for a while?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, Sylvain perhaps will be saying that now. it's unfortunately it's always a little bit too late that after the incident's occurred or people have already had a crash. But you can also see where Danny Webb's just crashed. There's a lot of debris on the outside of the track. You'd never have that. You can see there as well where Sylvain's bike has dropped grass onto the track. You don't get that in a short circuit race because you have time to clear the incidents. But here, it's just 8 hours of non-stop chaos, and they don't get time necessarily to sort every single incident out.
Yeah, it's a very difficult situation to be in as well, and as you mentioned, yeah, the damage has already been done for Sylvain Guintoli. Now, just want to say a big thank you to the people that have been getting in touch with us on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it these days. I personally still prefer Twitter. And we've got a couple of questions in. Maybe the first one for you, Taylor. Big thank you to Jan0077. I've got a question for you. What's the difference in speed between the two classes down the Kemmel Straight?
That is a very good question. I will just quickly interrupt the question there to say, for people that are at home confused, thinking, is that Chris Walker on my screen? That is Chris Walker on your screen, in the same helmet, still racing. I just want to shout Chris out because he's still doing a fantastic job, still really fast and giving it everything.
Yeah, he's a hero to many and a legend as well.
Could be hearing a good pace, controlling the third place at the moment. Then Sylvain suffered a strange crash, exit of the pit, but he could not really explain what happened.
I spoke also with him. He doesn't know. I think maybe he take a short line or just a slippery spot. I don't know, but the crash was not so hard. But okay, you know, always an 8-hour race, if you crash, it's not good for the result, of course.
So the plan was to control the race. Now you will try to push, to try to come back, or you will maintain the same pace?
No, we push. I see now already he makes 22. It means it's fast lap time. I think the bike will be okay. But no, I think 6-7 places is possible. And you know also by yourself, if you fight for the championship, you need every point. So no, we go for it.
Good luck, Werner.
Thank you.
Werner Daimer there, the team manager of the BMW Motorrad World Endurance Team, a former rider himself, and yeah, it's just a big disaster for them, and explaining what happened to Sylvain there, and it's really put a dent in the race, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Going back to the question from before about the top speed, I don't actually know exact figures. Superstock machines now are incredibly fast. The bike you can buy from the showroom, I know in 2021 my Superstock bike was well over 210, getting on for 220 horsepower. Just as a standard bike you can take out your dealership. So it's not huge the difference in top speed, but there are some different technical regulations between the tyres and other parts on the motorcycle that create the difference in lap times.
Yeah, very eloquently put there, Taylor. And there's another question coming from John Dillon, the third. And does the rider ending the stint remove the filler cap and give to the next rider to fit? I think I can answer that one. Yes, when the rider comes off, it's much faster to just pull the cap off with it and then hand it over to the next rider as they wait, and then as the next rider swings a leg over the bike, they put it back on and away they go. And a bike that we don't think we'll be seeing out on track anytime soon is the 777 of the Wojciech, and there's Danny Webb looking a little bit gingerly walking away, but thankfully, considering how big that slap was on the tarmac, relatively okay.
Apologies if you heard Danny's debrief there. That's Danny with his dad there. Huge crash for Danny, and yeah, difficult to say whether they'll be able to get that bike back on track. The problem they're going to have there is if the frame or the chassis is bent, because it went end to end, and that is where you bend a bike effectively. It'll bend the frame or it'll bend the swinging arm, and those repairs take a lot longer to get the bike on track. But they're fighting for this championship. They need to score every point they can, so they'll be doing everything they can to get back out.
Yeah, it'd be great to see them back out on the track, because they are one of the teams well and truly in this fight for the championship. And look at that style from Chris Walker there, as we're just talking about, still racing, still fast, and the 4-time runner-up in the British Superbike Champion. So unlucky to just miss out on one of those championships. And the first race that I attended in Knockhill back in 2000, he swept up, done the double, and such a such a legend in the British Isles, such a legend of racing is Chris Walker, and it's just great to see him there, still competing at the very top of his game.
Still incredibly late on the brakes by the looks of it as well.
Exactly.
We saw the 333 trying to pass him, and they couldn't get past him on the brakes, so he's still not any... he's still very sharp in that department.
Yeah, he's an incredible rider. Of course, a former winner in the World Superbike class, a 21-time race winner in British Superbikes, and 73 times on the podium. And his last win came at Alton Park back in 2012. I completely forgot about that race win until I looked up the stats the other day as we see Spa-Francorchamps looking down again.
I was going to
say, yes, I thought I'd noticed something as well. Yeah, coming through the bus stop and Puyon section, I thought it was just maybe my eyes and maybe the glare of the sun, but yeah, it looks like maybe something coming from the 37 BMW Motorrad.
Yeah, and it is worrying. That could be, it'll either be water or oil. He's perhaps noticed because your foot would slip off the foot peg, and it's a very scary thing to happen to you because you have no idea how much fluid's coming out, and he's now got to go down a straight and hope that when he gets to this next corner that it's not leaking onto his tyre and it's not going to cause him to spin out. But look at the time that these guys are taking out behind him. He's definitely nervous riding this round a little bit gingerly, but at the same time not coming into the pits. It's definitely, I'm sure it's smoking
there,
or
yes.
a puff of something, whether it's water or oil. We won't really know.
Well, the 333 wants to get past as soon as possible, just in case that bike does start throwing out very serious fluid behind it, as well as the 55 goes past as well. We've seen some of the Dunlop technicians just out getting a temperature gauge as we start to descend into evening time here at Spa-Francorchamps, but disaster has struck once again for the 37 of Sylvain Guintoli on board the BMW Motorrad Endurance Team machine, and we'll just keep a close eye on the bike. It seems to be going through certain corners. You can see maybe just a puff of smoke, but through the left-handers it seems to be okay. Maybe it's the right-handers you tend to see it a little bit more.
It does make you wonder whether his original crash was from this, or if it was potentially caused in that crash. Could have cracked a casing potentially, or a clip on one of the water hoses could have come off, and the bike could be just spilling a little bit of something out there. You see the puff again there, and it is towards the back right of the bike, so difficult to know exactly what that could be. It could just be that the tyre is rubbing on the fairing a little bit. That's also something that could happen. If the fairing drops down, it can start catching the tyre, and the smoke can be from the tyre itself.
Yeah, it seems to be going through certain corners that you see the puff of smoke, but it's clearly enough to be deterring Sylvain as he drops his leg into the bus stop chicane. Will he be coming in? He's looking over his shoulder. We believe he will be, yes. He's coming into the pit. So it's gone from bad to worse in the last 15 minutes for the BMW Motorrad team. Sylvain Guintoli having a slip-off towards the corner with no name. And as the bike got repaired, they've come back in again. So we'll keep an eye on as the 37 of Sylvain Guintoli pulls into the garage. And we'll see where he's going to start working on. So maybe we'll be able to hear, if we can get a camera in there, what Sylvain Guintoli is saying. It's a little bit difficult to hear anything, but you can see from his body language, there's something on his down on his right hand leg.
So that lock wire they're removing there, that is the lock wire that keeps the oil filler cap in place, and they're removing that now. So there you can see oil on Sylvain's right boot there. So that's oil that's leaking out from the bike. They'll clean that off his boot now, and that's exactly how you find out as a rider. Your foot will slip off the foot peg, it becomes really slippery, really fast. And that's potentially been caused in the crash. It could have been caused in a number of ways. But yeah, not a good situation to be in. They've got the torch in there. They'll remove all the oil with brake clean on your boot, and then get the torch in, see if they can see any cracks in the casing potentially, or wherever that's leaking from. They have to remove the oil filler cap to fill it back up with oil that they've lost.
Yeah, we did hear him on his first tour into the pit saying he said for sure it was oil, but as you say, maybe it was the result of, not the cause of, the original crash. And it looks like it may be a big job on here for the 37 who were in 16th spot before coming back into the pits, and they're now down in 20th. And we'll keep an eye on this. Some repair job going on here inside the BMW team, but for now the Yart team continue to lead the way ahead of the 12, the Yoshimura Cert, Moto Suzuki squad, and the 4 with Randy Krumenacker on board in third spot ahead of the Kawasaki and the 111 stock Aprilia in fifth spot and leading the stock class for the moment. But so far so good for the Yart team in first. We continue to watch the BMW squad. Sylvain Gintoli just explaining things through. Let's see if we can hear what he says. Unfortunately, just missed that part of the conversation, but he's keeping his helmet on, which means good news. He believes he'll probably back out on track in no time whatsoever. So, yeah, Taylor, just explain to us what you think they might be doing here just to rectify what the issue was.
Well, I would call it a bodge job, and I wouldn't recommend at home, if you've got oil leaking out your engine, to just fill it with silicone and brake clean. I think you should take it into your local dealer and assess the actual damage. But this is an endurance race. It's all about getting to the end as quick as you can. So if they can see a little bit weeping from somewhere, obviously they don't have time to take the engine out, replace the engine and fix it. They will just try and fill any gaps they can. But I'm not sure what that compound was they were using there. But endurance races are a little bit like, if it's moving and it shouldn't be, they'll cover it in duct tape, and if it's not moving and it should be, they'll fill it with WD-40. So that'll get you to the end of the day, and then you can worry about fixing it properly then. But yeah, there's clearly oil coming out the side of it. Real shame for them, because they were doing a fantastic job in third position. Perhaps now we know there is oil coming out of that bike, that could have been the reason for Sylvain's crash. It was a strange crash to begin with. It didn't really make any sense why he would have crashed there. He said when he first came in there must have been oil, but perhaps they got distracted by the thought that it could have been oil on the track, because we did see a bike that we thought was already leaking oil. So that's what they're now fixing, and yeah, a real shame for them there.
Yeah, just looking at the 4 there, it looks like the glove has come undone for the 4, so yeah, hopefully they won't be getting a black and orange flag to come in and sort that out, because they're running a third spot at the moment. So yeah, it's all starting to kick off now here in the 8 hours of Spa, with 3 3/4 of the race already gone. We're not even at the halfway distance yet, so plenty more to happen here. It looks like, as you said, we're just talking about, Taylor, the botch job is almost complete. Wrap it in some duct tape and away you go. Well, it'll be a bit more sophisticated than just wrapping it in some duct tape and sending Sylvain back away again. But we're starting to see the sun descend a little bit. You can see the headlights being more prominent. And if you're just joining us for the first time and you see some white headlights and some yellow headlights, that's because they showcase the difference in classes. The white headlights will mark the factory superbike, or the superbike class, and the yellow ones the stock 1000 class. And if you see the Yart Yamaha with the number 1 on it, you will see that they've got the white headlights, and they are currently your race leaders. We're approaching the halfway mark of the 8 hours of Spa at Spa-Francorchamps, one of the most glorious circuits in the entire world, blasting the way through the Ardennes Forest. We're riding on board with your current race leaders, the number 1 of the Yart Yamaha, making a pass around the outside at one of the most treacherous corners of the entire circuit. Oh, and they're getting a little bit closer, run out onto the curb there, and they're leading the race, but they're trying to get past as quickly as possible. That is the number 9. They're the former race leaders in the stock class. They've dropped down the order a little bit over time, but Yart still currently leading the way quite brilliantly over the Yoshimura Cert Moto Suzuki squad. And if you've just joined us after a wee bit of a while away and you're wondering where the 37 is, well, Sylvain Guintoli had a crash half an hour ago, and it was a very strange crash. He came into the pits saying that he believes there was oil. The BMW team got the bike quickly fixed once again, back out on track, but after a couple of laps on track, Sylvain brought the bike back into the pit garage, and there was some oil on his boots, so the BMW squad are currently trying to get that fixed, but they're dropping a number of laps down the order, which has taken them well and truly out of podium contention. But as we've seen throughout this race and throughout many races in the past in the Endurance World Championship, anything can happen, so you can't count your blessings until you see the checkered flag. But for now, it's the Yacht Yamaha have been looking on top form throughout the entire weekend, setting a personal new all-time lap record in qualifying yesterday with Marvin Fritz, and then just leading the way from lights out almost. To get challenged earlier on did Nicolo Canepa from the off from Marcus Reiterberger, and they've had quite a steady race. Have the Yoshimura Cert Moto squad currently in second place, coming across the line now, some 20 seconds behind your race leaders. Hard on the brakes, throwing the anchors out into turn one as we see Sylvain Guintoli for the third time come out of the pits, and hopefully we'll keep a close eye on Sylvain, but hopefully, Taylor, this is the last of the problems.
Yeah, hopefully for them. They've had a tricky last hour or so. They were looking so strong earlier in the race. I just want to give a quick shout out to Dan Linfoot, James Westmoreland, whose trackside gave us some great information. Dan actually had his fastest average stint out of his teammates in second place, so doing a fantastic job on the Cert Suzuki, and really they're going to push Yacht all the way to the end in this race. Yacht can't afford to make any mistakes or have any mishaps. As you see, Techer also fell foul earlier in this race. He didn't manage to get the bike started at the beginning of this race, and then Josh Hook unfortunately crashed, and then they've had a few little problems since then, so they've found themselves a lot further down than they should be too.
Yeah, you wouldn't imagine seeing the 5 and the 37 battling for the fringes of the top 20, but here we are after a couple of mishaps from the FCC Honda and the 37 BMW Motorrad squad. We see them fighting for, well, the positions further back. They were in the podium battle early on, but I think there's going to be some going, and they're going to have to take a lot of mishaps from the leaders to find themselves back in podium contention. But anything can happen, as we saw even last time out at Le Mans 24 hours. Everyone that seemed to be in the podium and race-winning mix seemed to come into some trouble at some stage, as we're watching Sylvain Guintoli now just easing his way back into things, making sure that everything is all hooked up correctly, everything's in place, no oil is leaking. And Taylor, for a rider that's just had come into the pits, it looked like there was a bit more smoke again coming through there. I don't know if it was my eyes deceiving me.
I think you did see more oil, and Sylvain's still looking down. So there's two things that can happen here. You can either leave the pits and the team haven't managed to clean all the previous oil off the bike, but they have managed to fix the problem, and that is just oil that's around the belly panel on the engine that's burning off. But I must say it's a tricky thing to fix an oil leak in that short space of time. You saw them removing the cover, perhaps replacing the gasket and putting the cover back on, but not a nice thing as a rider to have to deal with this. In practice, you'd be able to slow right down, take a good look and see if there was actually oil coming out of it. But in a race situation like this, you don't have any time for that. They've already lost a lot of time, and Sylvain will just be trying to coax the bike round. Perhaps the team will have had another idea whilst Sylvain's on track, that the next time they come in, they can get a different part and change that. But you're limited really in the amount of parts that you can change cosmetically on the outside of the engine that are going to make a difference if it's something more terminal or serious that's causing the leak.
As a rider, how difficult is that to just continue on, to maybe put that to the back of your mind and just try, I'm guessing you won't forget about it, but just try and focus on the job in hand?
It's definitely easier when you're younger.
Imagine.
But after you've crashed a few of them that have been leaking oil, it definitely takes the edge off your enthusiasm to riding bikes that are leaking oil. And Sylvain, no doubt, has ridden the odd bike in his time that's leaking oil. So it's a very difficult thing to manage. You can sort of ride around at a reduced pace without leaning the bike right onto the edge of the tyre, which creates less risk. You've got a little bit more grip when the bike's slightly upright. But at the end of the day, we're in a race here, and you can't ride around that slow that he's going to get in people's way, so he's got to ride at a certain pace. And as we saw, there's still puffs of smoke coming from that bike. The puffs of smoke we saw before when he got in the pits was quite a lot. There was a lot of oil on his boot, and when you've got oil on your boot, not only is it dangerous for it being on the tyre and on the bike, it's your feet quite easily slip off the foot pegs and you lose control that way too. So not a good situation for Sylvain or the BMW team to be in.
Yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on Sylvain, and hopefully that will be the problem rectified, or maybe they'll just carry on for a few more laps and maybe just try and get in sync with the pit stops again, as we see the Yart Yamaha come back in for a bit more of a splash and dash, handing over to, I think that's Carol Haneca just taking over from, yes it is, the yellow helmet, give it away. Carol Haneca, the former Red Bull Rookies Cup champion, takes over from Marvin Fritz, and a round of applause from the team, because that was some stint that Marvin put in once again, and yeah, looking in control at the moment. But I say at the moment because I do not want to give the commentators curse to the Yart Yamaha squad, because they'll probably just try and come hunt me down or something like that. But as we were talking about earlier on, the Yoshimura Cert Moto Suzuki squad, they are a little bit out of sync by about 2 or 3 laps with the Yart Yamaha squad. They've been able to extend their stints by a couple of laps each time, which means that they'll come into their own in the final stint with a pit stop in hand, because they're about 25 seconds off Yart at the moment, but over time that'll play back into their hands.
They're coming out of sync with our commentary stops as well.
They are.
Yeah.
How dare they?
We're not going to see them potentially do a pit stop now, or it'll be right at the end of our commentary stint. So that's how I'm keeping tabs on where we are.
So that's how you've been doing it.
That's how I'm doing it. So yeah, and that's the advantage there, creeping out in that sense in terms of the pit stops. But Yart are obviously doing a fantastic job at the moment. 3 very experienced riders and very fast around this Spa circuit. But yeah, it's a shame for me because I don't see Dan Linfoot on track, and that's who I really want to be watching. He's got a great chance of winning this race. As British fans at home, we all want to see the Brits doing well.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, Dan is performing brilliantly out there, and I was wondering, yeah, there's method to your madness, and your madness is really coming on strong in this one with your maths going forward. But Dan Linfoot, really, really good to hear from James Westmoreland that on the average of your stint, he was the fastest out of his teammates. And the good thing is, we might not be commentating on it, but we can go watch the rest of his stint from the office as we're listening to Marvin here. And we've lost Marvin from our TV screens for the moment. And yeah, so we've just lost signal to Marvin in the garage there. And it sounds like the audio might have just jumped out as well. But we'll continue talking on. Yeah, we're listening to the ambience from the crowd, but unfortunately we can't hear what Marvin is saying in the garage. So yeah, it looks like he's debriefing. Wonder what he's explaining. Any idea what he might be explaining there, Taylor?
Based on the international rider sign language, it was something to do with opening the throttle, the rear squatting a little bit and pumping as he's exiting the corner. It was amazing how internationally we all have one language for how motorbikes work. He'll also be making the sound effects with his mouth at the same time, which I could probably fill the sound effects in for you.
Please do. I mean, be my guest.
There's something like that is where the pumping noise that you would hear. But yeah, they're in control of this race at the moment, obviously very confident with what they're doing. I think a lot of the riders seem to be complaining about the grip levels, which is what he's signalling with his hands there as the bike's spinning up and moving. But at the same time, they're in control. They don't need to push too hard to do anything too silly at this stage of the race. They just need to control the gap at the front.
I must admit, I'll give you an 11 out of 10 there for your sound effects. That was well on point there, and I think you might be having to overdub some of the other bike noises here because it seems like our audio might have dropped out again. We could just hear the fans cheering in our headsets. So even though some of the riders on track are not having a great time, a couple of them have gone down. The fans here at Spa-Francorchamps are having a glorious time in the evening sun. So the number 8 of Romero comes across the line in 8th spot, and the Kawasaki getting chased down there by one of the stock riders, the 86. We saw them go down a little bit earlier on in the race, and the 86 is now back out on track, and powering his way through the field once again. So the 86 is currently sitting in, as we look through our time monitor, down in 32nd place. So they've been in the pits for quite a while. As we watch sliding through the chicane, the number 8 of Romero, the Portuguese rider. Poetry in motion, stunning images we're getting here as the sun begins to descend around the Spa-Francorchamps circuit here in Belgium.
Potentially he has a problem with his electronics in some way, shape or form there, because these bikes all have traction control and anti-wheelie, and the riders get used to riding with that. So as they're coming off the corner, they're accelerating really hard, and they almost use that to their advantage, so you can let the electronics keep the bike in control. But he's doing some outrageous wheelies that you wouldn't normally expect in this race, and that'll be because you can see the bikes wheeling there. The bikes have so much power that when it does go, and if you're just trying to keep the bike flat out, it will just come right up because they do have so much power. You could hear the electronics on the R1 there as it's crackling and popping as it's coming off the corner. That's what that's doing effectively. Well, yeah, we could see his bike getting in all sorts of shapes, and that could be, it could be something as simple as a wheel speed sensor that puts all the electronics out of balance. Then it doesn't know what's going on properly. It can't keep track of the speed of the wheels to balance the electronics with it. But yeah, it's a tricky thing to have to deal with if they've got another 4 hours of racing still to go, riding a bike with something as difficult as that.
I assume that's probably something that's not easy to dial out when the bike comes into the pits as they plug the laptop into.
No, you've got, there's only a certain amount of electronics on the bike, and to do that you'd have to probably replace the wiring loom. You might be able to change a couple of sensors quickly, but it's not an easy thing to do.
Well, we keep progress on the 8 machine Kawasaki, but we're keeping a tab on this at the 4-hour mark. The battle for the win, you can see on screen there, the 12 Yoshimura Cert Moto Suzuki leads the way ahead of Karel Haneke on the Yart Yamaha. But the Yart Yamaha have a pit stop in hand at the moment. They've just come in and they are currently on the 3rd lap of their stint, and our stint has now come to an end as we pass over to Tom Gaymore again, as they've just had a wee top up of coffee and tea, and Simon Patterson. So we'll take another wee break for the hour and leave it over to their wonderful hands.
I've been sitting watching a really big high side for the Wojciech machine, the 777. Good to see the rider okay there. And also, we've lost the BMW since I've been away. The woes down at Brussels, the hairpin, and been in and out of pit lane. And for a bike that has won around here recently, 2022, of course, and a bike that went so well in the early stages, that's a real shame to see them out of contention. So my name is Tom Gaymore, alongside me Simon Patterson. We're going to be talking you through the next 60 minutes of action as we head up to Raidillon and Eau Rouge